So today, guys, I have a build for you. I'm gonna say this is probably the best version of this build that I could come up with that would really give me my flame turret at all times. If you notice this turret, what happens with it, it has a long cooldown time. And when you don't have something to instantly proc that, it becomes almost useless of a build, in my opinion, because a lot of the damage is going to come from your flame turret and controlling that battlefield. But what if you could have your turret active at all times? Well, almost all times. Well, if you guys are looking at this build, you guys can already see that. Just give it a second. Wait till you see the cooldown on the turret. It's going to go down. But look at this duration on this turret. Just literally flying around, killing everything. But look, I actually have it ready to be procced again if I need to. So look, we're going over here. The duration's about to go down on it. Just give it a little bit more. And as soon as it goes down, I'm going to be able to release it right away. And there's a 45-second cooldown time on this turret. So just keep in mind. So it's done, it explodes, already have it back. And that's what I'm telling you guys. If you guys are looking for a build that's going to help this build work, help this turret work, and keep it up at all times, because that's where most of your damage is coming from, you're gonna want something like this. And you see, just this is crazy, right? I should have had a cooldown time on that, but that's because of how this build is set up. And then just look at the damage. The damage is there. We're burning everything. We're having a lot of fun with it. So if you're looking for this, this is it. Now, one thing I will tell you that I do miss a little bit from Division 1 is the auto targeting on the flame turret. I've always missed it. I'm kind of sad they never, look, got my turret again. But yeah, I do miss that. That's my one downfall for this set, is if they would have had auto targeting like we do with the assault turret, it would have been so much better. But hey, I'm not complaining. It still does what it needs to do. Look at this. Just clear this control point by myself with a big turret, right? The flame turret was just destroying everything. And yeah, it does what it needs to do. But let's get into the build so that way you guys can see how I have this set up. And you guys saw the gameplay, but it's time to dive into it. Let's go. Now for the build, let's get into it. So what the two-piece does, it gives us 20% increased burn duration, 15% skill health, and then 40% burn damage. And what the four-piece does is it allows our turret to spin 360, which is why the build actually becomes very useful. Now, it also allows us to become immune from our own turret's fire. And you know, before that didn't happen. Now the turret does explode when it disables, so you get a little explosion there. For the core attribute, it always rolls skill tier, so I left it there, and then I rolled status effects, and then I put skill duration because I don't need skill haste, because I should have my turret back all the time, as you guys saw in the gameplay. For the backpack, we went with skill tier, status effects, skill duration again, and then look at this. I went with the backpack talent because what it does is 25% weapon damage to enemies set on fire by the turret, right? So that means I'm gonna be putting out some damage. And then it also gives me 25% range, which I think on this type of build, you want as max range as possible so it could just burn all the enemies. We went with the gloves. That's our third piece of the Ortiz set, and it's gonna give us skill tier and status effects. And then our fourth piece is going to be the knee pads, skill tier, status effects. So we have a 4-piece, the new set, right? Now, I did go with a 2-piece Empress. Now, that's gonna give me 10% skill health and 10% skill damage, which is gonna help out on this build. Plus, we have skill tier, we have status effects, skill damage, and skill duration. Now, I went with the Caesar's Guard. Now, remember I told you I have my build so I can always have my turret up? Well, this is why, because of perfectly skilled. Skill kills have 30% chance to reset skill cooldowns. Now, if I'm letting my turret do all the damage, I should have that skill cooldown go up. And I'm only using one skill damage, which is the incendiary turret. So that's going to do most of the damage plus my weapon. So for our second piece of Empress, we're running it on the holster, and that's gonna be rolled armor, because remember I get one skill tier from the technician class. I have status effects, skill damage on here, and I'm sitting at a 913,000 armor, which isn't too bad. Now if I look at the flame turret, look what it does. 54,000 damage, the range on is 19 meters, burn damage 212,000, and then burn duration 11.5 seconds. So a very powerful burn damage build that I have going on here. But look at that, 50-second cooldown, 35-second duration, and you saw I was constantly getting my back. Now if you look at the base damage, 54,000, now that goes up to about 74,000 when you are running the Artificer Hive. And this is an example just so you guys can see. We just threw out the flame turret, and I'll show you guys real quick. If you look at it, it says 54,000 damage, right? And then once I throw out the Artificer Hive, it's gonna buff it. It doesn't buff the burn damage, but it does buff the base damage to 77,000, almost 78,000. So just in case you guys were wondering, it won't buff the burn damage. It does buff the base damage based on the testing I did here. And yes, for the second skill, I am running the Artificer Hive. And what that's going to do, it's going to buff my turret, right? So overall, these are both a win-win. I like it. I think they work great together. I think you can change this however you want. But obviously running the flame turret as one of your skills is why this build works. But the other one, it's really up to you. I'll let you guys decide that. I'll tell you, it's a fun build to run. I think this build would actually work better in group play. I think it's gonna be a great crowd control. Running around solo, doing solo missions, it might take you longer than running some of the other faster builds you can run. But in group play, I think it's going to be a great support player build. And then I do top it off with the capacitor, one of the best weapons to use if you're running some type of skill damage build. Now, if you look at this, it says shooting an enemy builds a stat cap of 40. Each stat grants 1.5 skill damage. So that's going to help this build hit even harder. And you'll start to see it improve as I build that max stack. And not only that, I also get 7.5% weapon damage for every yellow skill tier. So I can still help put out damage. And since I am running the backpack, what is that gonna do? Help me put out damage too. Now I say I did try other versions of this build without running Caesar's Guard, perfectly skilled. And the biggest issue I did have wasn't really the damage, it was more that really long skill cooldown time. I even tried running it with the BTSU gloves, thinking if I destroy my hive, it would get my turret back. It does, but then once that turret goes out that next time, you have to wait a little bit, and sometimes that became an issue. So this ended up being my favorite version of it. Perfectly skilled on the chest, running in 2-piece Empress, which I think maybe if you really want to, you're not worried about the damage on the backpack, you could probably swap out the backpack and put something else, and then run a chest and backpack gold pieces and the rest 4-piece. I don't know the difference in the range. That's something some of you guys might have to test out, see if the range is worth losing. I just like this turret being able to shoot across the map. It's pretty far. But that's gonna wrap up this video here, guys. Hey, I appreciate the support, appreciate the love. Thanks for hanging out. Looks like flame turret builds will be back. And I think a lot of people might actually end up running it like this, because having that infinite flame turret is amazing, especially with this build. All right, guys, I'll see you in the next one. Until the next one, hey, nothing but skills out. Take these, everybody.